Yeah, there was one chap starting out in Dubai, and I went on with the chap that I bought his course originally. So when I came out of jail and then we kind of got thrown into COVID 6 years later, I did reasonably well with this community, and me and him stayed close pals. And he sort of suggested that I form my own community because I had a bit of a following, and the way that I sort of approached the market was slightly different to some people. So yeah, that was good. I think got 20 odd thousand views. And then we did a YouTube video in Dubai, just on the beach. So yeah, it was reasonably good.
So did you buy? You said you bought a course. You say you
Yeah.
bought a course, or you bought whose course did you buy before?
So it was a guy called Zed Monopoly. Don't know if you've heard of him. Irish chap, was living in, I think, Malta at the time, and came through the ranks through there. Really, a lot of people. I knew they wanted a quick fix from the course. Obviously, when I was in jail, I was studying day trading and investing, everything from Warren Buffett sort of value investing, all the way through to high leveraged day trading. So I was a little bit advanced for the community when I started, and then I felt it had value, but like I say, I was already slightly too advanced for that, so I sort of turned 10 into 100 fairly quickly. And once you're in a position when you can earn 1% a day or 1,000 a day on a 100,000 account, that was me plain sailing. Then I knew that I'd go off and do my own thing and probably live abroad, which I used to do in the underworld days in Ibiza and Miami.
Okay. Well, let's start back to before where it all began. Like, what was like? Did you have grand plans of being in the underworld and a trader when you were like 5? You were out kicking the ball and you thought, "I'm going to go big time in Ibiza and then retire being a trader." Was that the grand plan?
No, I mean, from school, I was always, I think, was it Pokemon card? Not Pokemon cards, Tamagotchis. And then we had yo-yos and got into tennis. And, I was a council lad. And, yes, we had pocket money, but I was quite tricky when I was a young lad, swapping stuff and selling stuff. And then I bought a motocross bike when I was still at school, and we used to put that in the fields. And I, I, I wouldn't say I was always destined to live in Thailand or abroad and be a made man, essentially. But
What does tricky
I
mean? Does tricky mean that you were like a bit of a rascal?
yeah. I mean, obviously, for me, I've always kind of a bit like YouTube. You put a monetary sort of value on it or monetize things. For me, when I had hobbies, I I wanted to be in a position where I could earn money. So when I left school and was a plumber, plumbing was all the rage then. So I always knew that I had to rely on myself. My brother is probably 10 years older than me, 50, 51, 52. And he was very wealthy when he was in his 30s and 40s. So I had him to look up to. So I had a reason to be tricky. You're not going to get anywhere in life doing the same thing as everybody else. So I
Where did
just
the
had
desire
to.
come from? Because that's like there's people that have siblings and things like that do well, but they don't sort of necessarily follow the same path or follow into that world of want to build some wealth. So what was it about making money that appealed to you back then?
The light bulb moment was when I went to Ibiza, not the first time, when I was in my late teens. It was when I was up to no good in the underworld. And I was aware that money gave me an amount of freedom. I knew that I was never going to have a child. I never wanted to be a parent. And when I was in Ibiza and doing what I did over there, as well as back in England, which ultimately landed me in jail, it gave me an amount of money and freedom. Once I knew that living abroad wasn't all that difficult. A bit like when your parents used to say, we've got to move house or we've got to move cities to follow the money. I knew that if I could make my own money living abroad, that was very, very appealing. And obviously,
So, like you said there that you were in Ibiza, which I'm assuming is when you were older in life, that you found that you wanted freedom. But that, like, where did it come from when you were looking up to your brother as a young guy, wanting to be tricky during the school times? What, like,
he
was it?
always,
Were you moving around? Were you poor? Was it like, what was going on?
No, I was plumbing at the time,
No,
so
no, I'm saying
I was
back in your
really.
childhood.
Oh, no.
What
Well,
I'm trying to
the
think
one
of is you're saying that you were saying
what
that
was the
when you were younger,
catalyst?
I'm trying to think of, right. The world's got loads of little things that people want, right, and they all go for different things. And usually there's something that triggers off a desire in people that have got an entrepreneurial spirit, and they tend to be rascals. They tend to have a certain degree of rascality about them,
Hmm.
right? And that usually shows up when they're young, and they're usually doing things, but there's usually something that sets that in motion. And I'm wondering what that
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
because the things that you're talking about is that's later on. That's signs that
Yeah,
something's been set off in you.
the thing that set me off was when it was two things. I remember when my brother had a really nice house, really nice car, watch, went on holiday more or less when he wanted. I said something when I was probably in my early 20s. I said, "Oh, well, money's not everything." And he said, "I'll tell you two things." He said, "When you've got money, you don't need to worry about money. It stops your money problems." And number two, he said, "It's very nice when you wake up in the house that you want, drive the car that you want, come back and watch the TV you want, go and book a holiday when you want." He said, "All that costs money. You can't do that with no money." So there was never a moment when I was in my, as a child, that gave me a massive insight to, wow, this is what I can do. It was more do my plumbing, get my qualification, and then when my brother um, sort of started educating me about wealth and investing and money management, that's when the light bulb moment sort of struck. I'd gone
What
from
age were you then?
back, I was in my early 20s.
Right. So before that, because what you said before that was you were a bit tricky at school. You were turning. You was Tamagotchis. It was yo-yos. The quad bike. So it's before. This has showed up before your brothers went, do this, do this, do this. There's something before that.
Yeah, I think that's just council estate sort of, typically well-to-do families. If the child wanted a Tamagotchi, they got a Tamagotchi. For me, I had an old Tamagotchi that I had to maybe refurbish or make look better and try and get a better deal. So I think it was more my upbringing and my surroundings that made me want to be tricky. You either went, and I knew I was going to be somewhat of a criminal and a bit of a scally when I was a little bit younger, because I knew there was a hard way, which the governments and everything, um, you know, I think my granddad died and left my mum some money and she was expecting X amount of money, and then the government took this inheritance tax or something, and I couldn't believe it. I was dumbfounded. So all these things, I think, sort of led me to believe that I was going to be a bit of a criminal, and now, whilst I'm not a criminal, I live a digital nomad life away from the government, and I just want to do my own thing. So I think it was more the fact that I was learning to be tricky in my adolescence to then be even more tricky.
Yeah, but the trickiness was the being tricky was a way that you could get a result to get away from what you didn't like, because you were pursuing. It sounds like you were pursuing something. You were like, these conditions aren't where I want to be. I want to get somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a child, I was hanging around and associating with people that was um, probably not the lads that your parents didn't want you to hang around with. Whilst they've all done very well for themselves now and we're very, very close friends, there's a path isn't the way you're going. Like sometimes you associate, have a beer with someone at the pub and is a bit dodgy, not quite a murderer, but he's not a priest, and so on and so forth. So it was just the way that my I was brought up on a council estate. We were all having to be tricky as young lads, and that sort of set me up for my criminality life.
Were you any good with a yo-yo?
Sorry?
Were you any good with a yo-yo?
I was, I was as it happens. Yeah, not as good as some lads, but I was, yeah, I was okay.
That's interesting. I was the yo-yo champ, and it was my very first sort of thought about when I think back to when it set off in motion. My own life, it was yo-yos,
I
and
think
it.
my pal and I we did the Eiffel Tower. So I think flick it round and go like that. And yeah, I could probably do
Oh
it by
yeah,
the yo-yo now. I couldn't explain it to you. And then we did this Eiffel Tower in the playground. It was, wow, look at this.
yeah. Well, I remember it was the very first version of the pound shops had arrived. They were like very much in their infancy, and like a sort of local corner shop guy had clocked in that you could buy a lot of this stuff in China, and was shipping it over. And the yo-yo that he was selling in there was actually really good quality, and he was selling it for £1. And he, I was trying to find a way to compete with these, well-to-do kids
Mm,
that had, the 60 quid yo-yo that I couldn't get anywhere near.
yeah.
And I thought, how do I get one of those? Because I had the effort and the talent, I had the drive, I just didn't have the equipment. And I thought, how do I get the equipment? And it eventually bought some of these £1 yo-yos, took them apart and resprayed them red. And then when the young team were out getting bevied up at the weekend, they were out drinking, they would always like show us some yo-yo tricks. So I pulled some yo-yo tricks and I says, look, I've got a batch of these new yo-yos. They're called the Red Bullet. I says, and normally they'll go for about 20 quid. I says, I can get you them for £8, knowing that would be roughly the price of a bottle of tonic wine. And I sold all the yo-yos, and that was my profit that got me to buy the equipment that I could get to compete with the guy that was best. So I was the yo-yo champ because I'd found a way to get that yo-yo that would allow me to compete. And that was where I think the first sorts of signs that there was an entrepreneur in there. So it's interesting that you mentioned about the yo-yos because I can relate to that firsthand. So
Yeah,
see when you were,
I think,
yeah, on you
don't,
go.
yeah, I just think, I mean, I wouldn't say that your life's programmed for you, but, at school, you go through the mundane sort of prison routine. And I don't know what the fashion is. Oh, football cards, I think they were about when I was as a kid as well. And like you say, your parents have either got enough money whether to buy you 10 packs or you've got to do swapsies and try and build up a portfolio of football cards, which I think I did, shinies and so on and so forth. So it's just a case of what's in fashion at the moment and how wealthy your parents are, or not wealthy, as the case may be.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like, feel free you don't need to hold back on the indoctrination system that we call school and the government being the sort of the real criminals with pens and a suit.
Yeah,
It's one of the great things that I think we're missing now. And as we move into the information age, like you see it firsthand, like you're a perfect expression of it. The information age was the indoctrination system was there to put people in a school system to train them to not speak to anyone, to show up at a certain time, to leave at a certain time, to not ask any questions and not collaborate with anyone. Like, so they were essentially creating automatons to go and carry out the tasks for the
lemmings,
industrial
yeah.
age. Yeah, and this is what I mean is like the age that we're in, schools rapidly falling behind further and further because this new wave of technology is moving at a pace that the new education system can't keep up with. It just can't keep pace with the change. And that's why you see such a disconnect with all these academics that are, having a race to the bottom to try and find, purpose for what they're doing. And, they don't have it, but everybody's still caught up in the idea of you go to school, get a degree, get a safe job, work hard, retire with a pension, and you'll be looked after. And I'm afraid that's gone. That whole thing is totally gone. And anyone that's looked at any part of the pension system will know that it's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. So it's a really, really interesting time that we're in, and it's unusual that people that you would think would be educated should be able to spot the writing that's on the wall, and it appears that they don't. And I don't know if what do you think? Do you think that they are playing their busted flush draw. Like, we need to play this hand now. If like we're too far in, or is it a case of like, you know, I'll stick my head in the sand and hope it all goes away?
I think. I mean, it's a difficult scenario to be in. The police have got police for the government, the accountants, the doctors, the lawyers, and there's, you know, you've got your mayors or your local MPs. It's a difficult job to run the world, but that's exactly what it is. It's, you know, running of the world. It's very manipulated. I mean, COVID, for example, I know people died, and you know, I feel sorry for them. However, the same drugs that they pumped us with, or pumped people with, they didn't pump them with me, were free. Cost billions and billions, but yet if someone's a diabetic in America, they've got to pay £400 a week for an insulin, an EpiPen. So, and all this stuff you're seeing on social media, seeing on podcasts, Joe Rogan, this, that, and the other. And I think it's gone too far now. Certainly in England, even the politics over in America, Biden and Trump. I watched 40 minutes of the debate. You know, Biden can't string a sentence together. We're all very, very well aware of that. So if the government and the politicians are not managing that scenario, and then that filters into the Joe public, how are we supposed to adapt to what we're being shown on TV through an ex-president and the current president? So I think it's gone too far now that it's pretty much finished the, I don't know what you would call it, really. I think the respect from, you know, countries. I think it's all just a joke now, where someone's got to come and say, right, you know, COVID was a hoax, or COVID, you know, we didn't manage it correctly, and let's have a reset now. We're all going to go cashless. Or it feels like there's something brewing to me, where if you don't get out now, something's going to go bang. That's the way I feel about the whole scenario, because it's so obtuse and it's so random now, where if you're not in a position where either you're working online or you're managing your own finances, I just feel like there's something around the corner that's going to come out of the woodwork.
Well, I mean, I speak to people, and the general idea of the people that have looked at the data, and I mean, they've looked at the numbers, and with the view of, right, what does the data tell me? The conclusion that they come up with is COVID was one of the greatest frauds in recent history, like beyond like a military grade psychological operation, pumping people full of a untested, unregulated product that they labelled as a vaccine. They lied from media. They'd censored people. They told them that it was safe and effective when it wasn't. They covered up the data, and basically every government worked in lockstep to create a financial bubble that they plan to pop, and then follow that with an energy crisis, and then two proxy wars between the world superpowers as they sort of leverage positions. And you'll know yourself, if you've been trading for any length of time, that this is just a symptom of the progression, because when Trump was in power, it was trade wars where they were putting tariffs on each other. Then there was before that, there was currency wars where, you know, they were pegging the the currencies, and that was being manipulated. And then you just look at the whole sort of charade, and you go, well, you know, it spills into everything. And the question I ask is like, right, look, let's say that that's all true, right? Let's say that conclusion's true. Let's say the whole thing is a sham. What do you do? Because your life is intertwined in a financial system, whether you like it or not. It's so embedded in your financial system. Like, you might have an idea or a solution or a plan, but how do you get out or unwind yourself from that place? Because you use mobile data. Majority of things are digital. If you're making card payments, then you need a facility to do so. If you want to travel, you need to use card payments. Like, it's such a difficult thing to remove yourself from, unless you want to go and live in the woods. Like, good luck with that fucking Ted Kaczynski, where you're like, right, I'm going to build a cabin, I'm going to create my own sort of water supply. You're not going to get a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon. But when you look at, well, the food industry is causing illness, and that's good for the big pharma industry, because there's no money in healthy people and there's no money in dead people. but there's money in sick people.
Just keep,
It's like,
sick
so
people,
that seems to be a good business model for them. And then you look at,
yeah.
well, you know, if they can create a financial situation where people are under pressure to go and they don't look at Joe Biden not being able to string a sentence together because their mortgage payments went up 3x because the central bank have raised interest rates. You go, well, that seems like a great distraction for people, or their gas bill's now $2,000 a month because there's an energy crisis that's been created. And you go, well, like, what? The thing that doesn't make sense to me is these educated people seem to say there is no coincidence here. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you're educated and can't see it. I don't know how you can miss what's right in front of you.
Well, like you say, I think they're all working hand in glove with one another, and it's very much an orchestrated circus. I think there's got to be a bottom line to this of why, and I think there's a cash issue. So I've been looking at, I'm going down the rabbit hole a few times. The trade centers, there was something like $10 trillion missing back in 20 years ago. And all these scenarios, it doesn't just happen. Princess Diana doesn't just die in a Mercedes in the tunnel. All these things, I know some of them are a little bit out there, but you've got to. There's always a reason behind it, and obviously, I don't know the reason, but I'm clever enough to have a reset myself and sort of come away from the UK. I did get sapped into that. I did buy a new car. I was filling it up with £100 worth of fuel just to go around the block several times a week. And my energy bills, like as you say, they were coming in. I had all these bills going out, and I was thinking, well, what value do I have? Okay, we've got our NHS, we've got our Prime Minister, and it's just they're not doing a good job. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, they obviously know what they're doing, but what they're telling us and how they're managing us, that's what I felt like. I was felt very like prison. From school to prison felt very same. You had your teachers, you had your senior officers, and then I sort of came to grips with being a civilian again, and then only to have the COVID scenario. So for me, again, I was educated enough where I did short the market, I did buy the dip, I earned a lot of money within the COVID scenario and saga, and then I designed a course and sold it to 200 people and made 80 grand in a short period of time, which I've been very, very open and honest with people. I have had a few leg ups where I've taken that bold step to design a course and employ someone to do the tech side of it and record all the slides and stuff like that. So I think if you're tricky enough now, like your Warren Buffetts and the real wealthy people, it's a way to either get away from the rat race or manipulate it to suit you. I.e., I earn Western money and I live in Thailand now, and I've had a massive reset. I live in a villa that cost me next to nothing, and I'm in a position now where I can save money. I went to the bank, opened a bank account, so I'm having this money coming in. What do I do about tax? And she went, oh, don't worry, it's not a lot of money. Well, it's about 500,000 or 600,000 baht a month. And she went, oh, it's okay, don't worry. I thought, right, okay, fair enough. So, I am getting that looked at, but it's not like the UK where you spend £1.50 through PayPal and all your banks are closed and you can't do this, and it's just a nightmare. You make a call. I made a call in outside of Thailand, and they blocked the call because I went over £10 in the first minute. It's just everything's just. It's going to get worse, like you say. It's going to get worse in the sense where you won't be able. If I wanted to buy a watch off you now, I could probably send you 10 grand. Whereas with my Bitcoin wallet, I could send you 200 million, 100 million, not a problem. So things, and the government don't like that. They don't like a facility where you could send 100 million to someone. It costs you about £5, opposed to banks charging you crazy interest rates. I use Wise. It's cheaper for me to send £10,000 from England to my Thai account through a company called Wise, doing it 10 times and paying 10 separate fees because I get a better exchange rate and cheaper fees. I save £300. Whereas if I do it from a bank, it takes 3 days, and it costs me £300 more.
Well, I know what they're doing. It's probably another podcast in itself if you want to go down the rabbit hole, because like most things, they
Cashless?
sign. Oh, big time, big time. But cashless is only one part of it. It's only one part of it. Cashless is a sign of what they want, and you alluded to it there. I mean, you're actually really close to what they're doing. If you look at the slides or slides from the unelected think tank about the dynamics of what each part has, so it's a technological control of everyone. It's having everyone in a technology prison that they can control. They can see your movements. It's all related to carbon tax. It's all related to monitoring your payments. It's all related to control, no due process. You can see signs of it in China. Like, you want to look at it, China's the best place to have a look, where
Yeah.
they've got a digital currency there. It's held at the central bank. They're using facial recognition technology. They can deduct a fine without any due process straight out your digital currency account. To do that, what they have is your biometric data. So things like vaccine passports, digital ID, the things that have been pushing. If you are tracking your movements using cameras in low traffic neighbourhoods and ULEZ zones, they can then track all the car movements. They can then generate a carbon tax amount that they can deduct straight out your account because you've breached your carbon limit. That would go back to your smart meters and your usage on your phone and your payment history, what meats that you've bought and so on. So it's a whole infrastructure of, right, we can control what you're doing based on the movements that you have. And this is the whole thing that we've been discussing. The guys that are in the world of finance are like, something's up. And generally what we look for is, right, where's the move? Like, that's what we're looking for, because what we do is we play the move. We're generally agnostic to the result. So whether we want the company to do well or we don't want the company to do well, it's a matter of what's the position I can take to improve my position. It's not necessarily, do I want to buy into this because long term I think it's the goal, which a lot of people might criticise, but like that's the nature of the beast that you're playing with. And if that's the nature of what you want to do, you're spotting the move. When you see these things, when they don't make sense, because there was things that didn't make sense in the world of finance, like for instance, ESG. I don't know if you've seen the ESG hypocrisy, which was a big sort of thing that stood out to a lot of the finance guys. That were like, we need to look into this a bit more. So are you familiar with the ESG score? So it was an ESG score. So
No.
there was the environmental, social, and governance. So the World Economic Forum had come up with this plan of, right, we're going to score your company and its investability based on this scoring metric. And it was environmental, social, and governance. And the idea is that the more environmentally friendly you had, the better governance you had, and the better social impact that you had, you would attract more investment. So one of the things that you started to crop up was you were looking at these ESG scores, and it was a case of the money would get diverted to these poster boys of industry. And what you would look at is, well, environmental, who was the first company that came to your mind that was making the biggest social impact environmentally, or the biggest move if you believed in the narrative? And that would be Tesla. So you would think Tesla making the transfer from fossil fuel driven vehicles to electric vehicles, they would be the best score, surely. Right? They're a big company, they're a big outfit, they've got government contracts, and they're making the biggest move. Well, when you looked at the ESG score, Coca-Cola had a higher ESG score than Tesla because they were marching to the beat of the drum rather than Tesla saying, right, I understand what your scoring is, but we don't agree with some of your policy decisions. And what it became really clear, what became very apparent was, right, your score isn't, this thing is publicly to promote this ESG thing, but behind closed doors, it's actually push your agenda. And your agenda is getting every corporation to get in lockstep using the influence of, we'll decide who gets what money based on this score, so that you will follow our formula, you'll follow our rules.
Just manipulating it.
Yeah, and that was the thing is you looked at it and you go, this, something isn't right. And then what happens is you pull the thread. Who's behind that? Who set the ESG score? Why? To what end? The question is, to what end? What's the result that you want? So what result do you want out of doing this? And then you started to get closer to, well, your BlackRocks and your Vanguards that are funding, that are controlling the majority of the funds, that would be the gatekeeper or the custodian of the funds, that would decide based on the ESG score what companies got it. And then you would get a situation where companies that didn't deserve to get it were getting more money than the companies that actually should have got it, and then that would force all the other companies to start to march to the beat of the drum. But that beat of the drum was to fit this agenda, which was all the technological sort of surveillance, and that model was being rolled out worldwide via these corporations as what was seen in China. So that was what they wanted. But to do that, they had a few options. They could do it using the ESG score, or they could create a financial pressure that would cause people to move into a situation. So if you had, for instance, a financial crash where the existing fiat currency system was under severe pressure due to a war or a pandemic or a pension crisis or a bank run, whatever the headline it would be, what they would do is arrive like the White Knight and say, listen, guys, we know your energy bills are through the roof. We know this war's dangerous. We know they've got all these people that have came in from all over the world. What we need to solve this is we need to know who's who. So what we'll give everybody here, good citizens, is we'll give you a digital ID so we know that you're safe and we can protect you from the bad guys that we've let in. But because there's a lot of financial pressure, what we'll do is we'll offer you this bank account and we'll subsidise your energy costs and your food costs. All you need to do is set up this account, QCBDCs. And that would be how you would reel people in. So look, we'll get you in. And as soon as you got your clause in, that would be what they start. So they were doing this on a scale where they were spreading out and trying to get that approach. But what COVID did for a lot of people, and I use this analogy is that it was like putting a frog in boiling water, and what they did was they turned up the temperature too quick, and people went, whoa. Because before COVID, what you had was people that gave the governments the benefit of the doubt. They probably knew they were getting pumped in some way. They probably knew they were getting shafted some way. They weren't exactly sure how, but fucking for the greater good went along with it and went, that's okay, the government are here to look after us. They're looking after our best interest. I know that my grand's getting pumped with this inheritance tax, but hey, look, it's paying for all the services we have and all that kind of thing. So look, we'll just get on with it. But COVID rolled in and they turned the temperature up. And a lot of people that were switched on, Robbie, went, oh. And that was when they started to look. And now people aren't giving them the benefit of the doubt. And that's why you're having the situations with the confidence in institutions have never been as low as they are now for a long, long time. And that's what that feeling is you're getting a lot of people out there that are saying, I don't think that there's something quite right with this. And I knew when the postie was coming to the door and he says, Gio, I think there's fucking something wrong. And I knew then.
Well,
I was like,
it's not, we know something's wrong. It's got to the stage now where it's not something's going on. We know something's going on. It is happening. We just don't, well, like you say, it might be a few months, a few years before there is this reset. But as you say, it's very much apparent. And that's why I thought I had a relationship, 7 years. My missus wanted to, at the time, wanted to stay and build a brand up in a business. And I just felt, I'm 40 now. When I came out here last year and I came back and forth for 7-8 months before I came here, it was all, every time I was here, I was like looking at my visa, looking at this, looking at the banks. My mates all live here anyway, and they said, I can't believe it's taken you 14 years to come here. You know, the same guys I was in Ibiza with. But when you're here now and you're looking at a file, like I want to go and see my father in the UK, and I'd literally just see him for a few days, and I would come back because I just don't want to be in England. It's got to that stage where I just don't want to. It's not home. It's not home as such. This is home. You know, the feeling of freedom where you get up in the morning. You know, okay, the sunshine. You know, even when it's raining, it's pleasant because you know you've got the police are okay. You know, you've not got your helmet on. You just give them 500 baht. You're on your way, and they're making life livable. In England, it's just there's always something going. I used to get letters through the post of just randomness. You know, you've got a late fine for this, and I used to look. I said, I have not had an account for months. I settled that when I was at my old address. 2 years, okay, yeah, no problem, okay. But these were like serious letters, and I don't think they were making an error. I think they were just fleecing people and putting pressure on them. All right, I've got this £400 bill, and just everything was just beyond a joke. I used to get up in the morning and look at the car that I was driving, and the cars that I thought was going to make me happy, and there wasn't. In fact, it was making me the opposite because then I had to earn out here now. It doesn't matter if I don't earn any money for 6
got a warning here for your laptop. See, says this result. Robbie's computer, Robbie's computer has stopped recording. This is a result of hardware limitations. First, close all running apps and tabs and rejoin the studio. If on a laptop, make sure it's plugged into the wall outlet. If your camera has auto light exposure, turn it off. Consider joining the studio from a better computer or a mobile app. Are you recording on your phone? Is it your phone camera you're using? Right. Yeah. Let's see. Give me a second, I'll check. 2 seconds. Still showing that it's not recording. Hear me, Robbie? Yeah, yours isn't recording. You want to jump, just join back in. So jump out and jump back in. We'll see if we can get it to work.
There we go.
Let's see. Yep, that's you back recording now. Good man. Right, so yeah, what we'll do is we'll keep to your story because I could go. I could do a fucking 3-hour podcast in the fuckery in the system. When I was trading back in 2019, I worked out the numbers, Robbie, and I was like, this is rigged. Mathematically, there is no possibility that this can happen. And I got one of the analysts to do a back engineer the numbers. Like, go and check these numbers. And he was like, yeah, they're all right. I was like, this is rigged. This whole thing is fucking rigged. And that sent me on you pull the thread. You pull the thread, you keep pulling, you keep pulling, you keep pulling. I was like, oh. And you have this sense of disbelief. I remember thinking to myself, it can't be. There's no, you have, because you believe it's one way. Robbie, I believed it was the way that I thought. But I was getting information and evidence that was overwhelming my belief. And I was like, it can't be like this. And I had to go and get some fresh air. I was like, there's no way. And then slowly but surely I would get to the bottom of it and be like, I need to come to terms with this. This thing's rigged. And you'd be like, yeah.
And especially now, I mean, you had your Magnificent Seven, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, so on and so forth, and these were pretty much propping the economy up, and certainly the equity market, because they was driving the Nasdaq, obviously a tech heavy companies, and that's what was driving the economy. But now there's Nvidia pulled back the other day, lost 500 billion. I did a video for my students when I was in Marbella, 2021, And I said, oh, I've got a funny feeling that the Nasdaq's going to go to 20,000, and 3-4 years later, we're here. And there's no real, all the prices to earning ratios are off with the companies. They're not worth what people are buying. And if there is a correction, they're going to get wiped out. People are massively over leveraged. And it's all because of Biden just wants the economy, certainly the stock market, to look look robust. So people put him back in office. That's the top and bottom of it, from my view, in a 60-second narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I personally don't believe that Biden knows what fucking day of the week it is. I don't think he's clever enough to pull that off. I think whoever's got their hand up his arsehole and is pulling his puppet strings have an agenda, and that agenda is a financial crash. I don't think it's about getting them voted in. Well, I agree with you. I agree with it. It's getting them voted in because they don't want Trump in. But I don't think Biden knows. I don't think he knows if it's New Year or New York.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is he's probably he'll get replaced, and there'll be another person that will get re-elected. Trump won't get. I mean, he should get in, and if he does, then it instills a little bit of confidence over in America. But let's call a spade a spade. I mean, I'm sorry for the American viewers. It's always been a bit of a laughingstock to me, America. I mean, even when I was over there, they don't understand humour. They're more robotic than anything else. You know, at least England and Europe are a little bit behind China in the sense of going cashless and whatnot. I think if that happened tomorrow in America, most people would just follow suit because they'd be petrified of rebelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Let's get back to your story because that's what we started with. I reckon we should definitely do another one, and we'll go right into the rabbit hole, and I'll leave it here. Right, I went on to I think 5 episodes of conspiracy theories with Big Mikey, the tattoo artist. He's got Asperger's, and he's a fucking giant human being. I mean, he's 6'8", 150 kilos, solid, and he's tattooed. He just looks like an American MTV fucking, like jail lord. But he's got an incredible, like, see if he locks onto something, he's got incredible recall, and his concentration levels are through the roof. So he does very, very well with these sorts of things because he intuitively knows something's up. And we got a bit of, it was great episodes in terms of viewership. Some of the clips got, 500,000 views, and it was just covering off. Like, I would come at it from the point of view where I was following the finances and it would go that way into the conspiracy. And he was coming at it from the other end, seeing it, and it would meet in the middle. When we asked Gork AI, which was the Twitter's chatbot, X's chatbot, now, it seems fairly obvious that ChatGPT has got left-leaning and has been written in such a way to give you a perception that they want you to have. So the answers it spits out is to give you to tell the story in such a way that it wants you to buy into that story. Gork has no such thing. So I put into Gork, what's the top 10 conspiracy theories that have become conspiracy fact in the last 10 years? Robbie. Wow. This was from X's chatbot, and it was just like,
right, go on, give me a few.
Holy shit. Right, so to give you a rundown was the UK government's elite paedophile ring. So covering up the UK government's elite paedophilia, there was the social media companies and governments having secret arrangements to censor public opinion and to shape public opinion using influences through social media. There was the UK's 77th Brigade that was creating shutting down and censoring people that were going against the UK government's narrative. There was the whole Prince Andrew Epstein Island fiasco, where there was essentially a honey trap using young people to get people in powerful positions compromised so that they could have them in their back pocket. To name but a few, lies about the vaccine. The whole, in 10 years, it would blow your mind. Even things like Keir Starmer, who's sort of the next poster child for the God Saviour of the Labour Party. He was the head of the DPP. He was the Department of Public Prosecutions while Savile was being investigated, and it was overwhelming, the evidence that Savile was a fucking wrong'un. And Keir Starmer at the time was the head of the DPP, and he just shut it down because Savile was pals with the monarch. He was pals with King Charlie, so King Charlie wanted his boy to be looked after, and his boy was looked after, and that was in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening. I mean, I don't mind a conspiracy, or listen, if I had an opportunity, if someone said to me now, Tesla's going to go bankrupt, there's a potential you can short it now. I'm all for stuff like that. If there's a monetary aspect of it, like you say, being a bit tricky and a bit of an entrepreneur, and I mean, the Twin Towers, apparently that was that was meant to happen. It was allowed to happen, to go to war, because there were 10 trillion missing. So, and then you had everyone short in the airline stocks, and then rebuying them when they're at the lows. I'm all for earning a few quid out of the job, but when you're talking about wrong-uns like that, I mean, they don't. Well, you're not on a wing with them in prison. They're segregated for a reason. But if it's all fair game in there, if we could get hold of a nonce, it'd be game over. And sometimes it does happen where a screw will leave a door open, and then invariably or not, the life ends. It's as simple as that. So I've seen it firsthand on wrong-uns, and it's not good.
What do you mean in terms of what they do, or like?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't often happen, but say, for example, if you get a nonce, typically he's on a nonce wing. So if he's being in for, like, say, paedophile stuff, I mean, even just talking about it, it makes you cringe. But sometimes they'll say, no, I want to be a normal prisoner, I just want to mix in. But then someone will say, give me your depths, or they might see him on TV or Google the name, and they will 100% get severely hurt on the wing that day. So if he gets found out, there'll be someone, either a lifer or somebody, that will severely hurt him and slash him up, stab him, nearly finish him off.
Right, well, I'll give you one that was in a unredacted memo that was classified. That's right on that queue, right on that point. See if I can find it here for you. When I read it, I thought, this just fucking highlights exactly who these people are. And they were within the very top tiers of the UK government. And the UK government is just one government. It seemed to be many. So I'll pull this up. I'll read it to you, because it made my blood boil. Let's see if I can find it here.
How much Bitcoin do you own?
Enough.
Good.
What about you?
No, but I will soon to be owning some.
I done well out of Ethereum, very well. I seen the disconnect happen when Bitcoin started to take off in 2020. People thought I was nuts when I bought it at, what did it fall to, about 3,300. Bitcoin had fell to that low, and I'd bought in, and they were like, this thing's going to zero, you've lost your mind. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And I says, look, I'd seen the chart, and I says, look, Ethereum was at about $450 and Bitcoin had broke through 20,000. And I says, look, Bitcoin needs, if for Ethereum to remain at this level, Bitcoin needs to come down to $5,000, or Ethereum needs to go to $2,000. I says, that's the connection, is like for this correlation to stay in play, the one needs to do the other. So I had a small position short in Bitcoin and a very, very big position on Ethereum, and the idea was that Ethereum would I thought Ethereum would take off, because the general conditions of the market was that it was euphoric. It was, things looked like they were going to go up rather than go down, So Ethereum was just not at the races yet, and I've loaded up, done very well out it.
Yeah, because I've been doing this for best part of 10 years, and I've done reasonably well from it, and obviously living in Thailand, I kind of stick to what I know, which I think I got a little bit too hooked onto Warren Buffett and his view of Bitcoin. But the way I see that the world's moving, I mean, even out here now, I don't really have cash. I get paid into my Thai account, so everything's just digitally, obviously trading online. You take your profits. I'm starting to put some of them on a digital wallet. So now I'm probably in a position where I can start dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin or Ethereum, and maybe use it as a store of value, a bit more like gold, on the basis that it may be 100,000 in 6 months. But yeah, I missed the boat on that one. And when I was trading Tesla, my mate, I had 10 grand worth of Tesla shares. He said, "Whatever you do, just don't sell them." But I was earning sort of £100 a day, thinking, "Wow, when I get 100,000, I'm making £1,000 a day." And I kind of just stuck to them parameters, which is good for risk management, of course. But like Warren Buffett said, when you see them massive opportunities, you have to take them, because you'll be forever kicking yourself. You know, 2 of them opportunities there would have made me a multimillionaire.
When you say it, like, it's interesting that you say Warren Buffett. Like, a lot of people might not know this, but Warren Buffett, you are trading, so you're looking to make gains out of short-term positions. If I'm right in saying
Yeah,
you're not interested if it goes up or down. You're just interested in getting it right more than you get it wrong, and coming out with
100%.
profit. But that's not what Warren Buffett does. Warren Buffett's a very different type of. He's not a trader; he's an investor. So it's interesting that you look to him as a sort of insight, or as a place to look at, because it's not the same ends of the field, if you like.
It's a safer end of the field. Obviously, not using leverage, and value investor. The name speaks for itself. You're buying low, you're selling high. It's very well. The reason why I got turned off to Warren Buffett was because, yes, it's great. If me and you have got 100 billion between Gio and Rob's hedge fund or investment fund, we don't need leverage. However, me and Gio don't have 100 billion, so invariably not, we have to use leverage. And when I made that transition where I understood buying low, selling high, and there's only so many Warren Buffett books you can read about value investing, dollar cost averaging in, that's good for your long-term portfolio. So I've taken all of what I learned from Warren Buffett when I was in jail for the long term. But then when I was introduced to leverage, that's when the light bulb moment went off, when, like my brother said, it's very well that money doesn't mean everything, but when you're waking up in the nice house and driving the nice car, you don't have any issues, and there's certainly no money issues. You sort of get a feeling for yourself. Like, I didn't know that I was going to take to day trading as I did do. But for me, it was all about managing risk, certainly using leverage. So yeah, as you say, it's a bit of a grey haired man's business, investing, whereas day trading, typically it's got a bit of a bad rap now. Your Lamborghini your Lamborghini boys in Dubai, renting cars, selling you a dream. I've done a little bit of that myself in terms of being over in Dubai. I've got a nice car in England. I've got a nice watch collection. But I put so much information out on YouTube and social media. And obviously I've got my community where I'm analysing the markets for, like, say, short-term moves, potential long-term moves. I mean, I predicted the bottom and analysed that on a technical level October of last year, and we had that massive rally into Christmas and onwards. So, I'm not adverse to holding positions as well. Obviously, they're of a smaller size, same leverage, or flipping it on its head, using massive leverage with smaller capital.
Right. So I'll be your nemesis here. Right. So, like, I'll put out, like, people that talk about day trading. Why do you think day trading is still a thing, and how do you beat the high frequency sort of quantitative traders out there?
I think it's a bit like comparing a bodybuilder. Anyone can go to the gym and get in reasonable shape. Some people do it slightly better. And I think if people can manage, if people are of a business sort of acumen and they're able to sail their own ship or do a podcast or run their own business, they're able to make money in the short term and possibly long term if they're able to manage their emotions and manage money. Managing emotions and managing money is very, very different. I had quite a lot of money in my mid-20s, which ended me in jail. I don't think it's a case of beating anybody as such. It's just a case of managing your risk and being consistent. I don't know if I've answered your question there.
It's a great answer, but it wasn't answering my question.
Sorry.
Right, so the high frequency traders is these people are buying the order book or the order flow of people that are putting positions in. And if there's a queue of 10 people, they will jump to the front of the queue using high speed exchanges to get to the front of that queue. And they know who's in the queue because they bought the order flow from the brokerage houses.
Mm.
They jump to the front of that queue and they get in the position first. And just before you buy, they'll exit the position. And sometimes they'll take the opposite position if they have a big enough play, they can manipulate it the other way. And that is the essence of high frequency trading. So it was not a thing prior to back in the day when you could scalp properly because there wasn't that high speed flow order available and there wasn't these sort of super quantitative analysts that could build these programs that could execute at that level. But we have them now. So where does that kills the sort of time horizon or the ability to scalp in the way that it was done in the past? And that caught a lot of people short because they were looking at it, they were looking backwards at what it was like then, but not considering the parameters of what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, your typical retail trader like myself, we can open positions and close positions in seconds. Yes, I know what you're saying. There's a lot of noise in between that second or that minute. However, that's probably going one step further than what your typical retailer trader does, like me and the guys on Instagram. I mean, scalping for me is seeing the NASDAQ at 20, seeing a reversal from 20 to 19,950, getting 50 points, going in £100 per point. That could take 4 or 5 minutes, and I get $5,000. That's about as quick. I'm probably scalping, or if I get a real good move, 15, 20 points in the first minute, I'd be out. So that's probably as high frequency scalping as we do, or certainly me and my group, trading either CFDs or spread betting.
No, what I don't mean like the day traders that are using high frequency trades. What I mean is the high frequency traders are betting against people that are doing day trading because they can get in and out of positions much faster, and they know who's in the queue for buying or selling. So they're playing that angle where they know who's going to be putting the bets in, and they get in first and they get out first. So it leaves everyone sort of hanging, and it takes out they're essentially picking up the margin that would have been in the market. And it kills a lot of the ability for people to sort of scalp the way it was done in the past.
Yeah, I mean,
so
maybe best left off in the past.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Given that that's a parameter now, like if day trading was as simple as buy the dip, sell high, buy low, whatever angle you want to take it, there's a reason that 90% of people that trade lose money, and one of the reasons
I don't know if it's necessarily down to that specific high frequency element of trading, because you might get your momentum traders and your swing traders. So yes, what you're saying there obviously plays a factor into trading, and certainly high frequency trading. Well, that's just one element of trading where a lot of people maybe don't go to that level because they've not got the capital, where they don't want to be in and out in seconds like myself. Whereas this morning, the Hang Seng rallied in the first 10, 15 minutes, probably 200 points. So if I'd have gone in at £300 per point on, say, the TD365 or 1 to 200 leverage, that's about a 40 grand position. I'd have got about 8 grand in 10, 15 minutes. So I don't think there's many people now that are losing money. They will be losing money scalping, but not to the professional level at what you're saying and how the markets move. That's probably something that I would like to understand and vaguely understand. But for us now, it's kind of, I don't think that really plays a part into people losing money. The reason why people are losing money is because they're using too high leverage and they've not really got the funds. That's the bottom line.
What sort of, give me the range of leverage that you use? What's sort of like the highest? What's the lowest? What's been the one that you've?
What I only use two, so you get, there's two sort of standards out there for what I use. You get IG, which is 1 to 20, and you get 1 to 200 with TD365. So if you've got a £100,000 account with IG and you use £100 per point, that costs you, I'll tell you, it's round about 20k again, 9,800. That would cost you £100,000 per point, whereas on TD365 that would cost you 10,000.
So is that, am I right in saying that you're talking about either 20 times leverage or 200 times leverage?
Correct.
Wow.
So your standard sort of leverage with IG is what we was all familiar with, and there's a lot of guys on social media now. I mean, there's a lot, 99% of them are full of you know what, but there's a handful that are doing very, very well. If you're getting £500,000, and there's one guy on YouTube and Instagram, he made £500,000 in 1 day or 2 days. He won't be doing that with your standard leverage 1 to 20. It'll be 1 to 200 because he won't be he'll have to put on millions to earn £500,000. Whereas if he was using someone like TD365, 1 to 200, you obviously need a tenth.
And what is it you're trading? Is it just foreign exchange?
No, I don't trade currencies whatsoever. I trade indices. So your FTSE 100, the DAX, the Hang Seng here on the Asian time zone. And at the moment, because the markets don't want to sell off in America, just like yesterday, it pulled back and everyone bought the dip and it moved 150 points. Yesterday, it found a level of 19.6 and moved another 200 points. This morning, it's just opened now, 10 minutes ago, found the bottom at 19.7 and rallied another 100 points. Whereas Nvidia is kind of hovering. So there's no real catalyst at the moment to indicate what is really moving in the markets. I think everyone's kind of aware that Biden might have something to do with it, Joe and Powell. Okay, everything looks okay on the balance sheets and unemployment and houses, but it's not.
What are you doing, like, to get your trade ideas? Like, where do you get the trade ideas from? Like, is it purely just technical analysis?
I mean, I like fundamentals because when I was in jail, I did a lot of research in fundamental analysis, and the news was somewhat of a friend then, giving you an indication of what's happening in the world when you're locked up many hours a day. So I do like fundamentals, and I do believe they've got a part to play. If unemployment crashes or the housing market crashes, this is all, or CPI or inflation increases, you name it, that then has a part to play on the markets. It's not the charts that are running the fundamentals. The fundamentals and the powers that may be are running the world. They're getting the data to show you how good or how bad the economy is, which you trade accordingly. Negative news, obviously, market tanks. Does it find a bottom, or is the new support price a resisting price and it's going to tank even further?
Mm-hmm. What do you like?
So
So
no,
see when you get someone that's interested in learning how to do what you do, like what is it? What is? Where do you normally start with them?
I like to understand a bit about the background. So we had a few crypto boys that turned literally pennies into, lumps of money, tens of thousands of pounds, some tens of thousands of pounds into hundreds of thousands of pounds, but they couldn't understand that, it was highly unlikely, even with a £100,000 account, when you're trading £50 per point, which would be half of your account size, um, it was very unlikely that you were going to earn 10 grand and do what you've done with the meme coins and replicate that into the standard sort of financial markets. And for them, it was a bitter pill to swallow because they had all this money that they thought they was going to go to these broker accounts, see what everyone's doing on YouTube and Instagram, seemingly doing, and earn tens of thousands of pounds a day. Yes, that's absolutely possible if you've got millions of pounds to play with and you've got a good appetite for risk. But when I was saying a percent a day was very, very good. If you're getting 5 to 10% a month, that was outstanding, given the fact that the S&P typically moves 8 to 10% a year.
It fucking blows my mind. Like Jim Simmons is the best investor the world's ever seen in terms of trading. Right, he's got every metric, every data point, every single indicator. PhD level mathematicians working out patterns, and his win rate is 51%. So he loses 49% of his trades. Right, his medallion fund needs to be a particular
20-30%
size.
a month.
It's not even a month. Annualized, that thing does 30% a year. Annualized.
Yeah. If you invest with him, I think you guarantee 20 to 30% a year. So if you give him a million quid, you're getting 200 grand, 300 grand a year. But what he'll be doing with that, he'll be using options trading. So you get your standard sort of leverage that we use, your IG and your your TD365, where you need a tenth of the account. So if you've got someone that's got 100,000 account with IG, that would be like $1 million with TD365. So you're able to put massive trades on using leverage, and obviously he's going one step further where he'll be using options where he's got billions, and he'll be getting magnified even more. Which, yes, it's quite again, it's a massive minefield, the options, because you've got so many different tradable options, whereas you can be out in a week, you can be out in a month. It's something I'm not going to look into. I've got a little bit of an understanding, but that's what he will be doing, because if you give him £1 million and he's giving you 20 to 30%, he's got to be at least doubling that for it to make him work, because he's got to pay all the fees, he's got to pay tax, corporate tax, VAT,
Yeah,
or
but
whatever they
even
pay
just
over in America.
even on the face of it, if you take the 30% a year, the best investors, Paul Tudor Jones, Stanley Druckenmiller, these guys are at the coalface of trading, and annually,
that's what he's paying his investors, but he won't be earning that. Jim Simmons will be doing 300-400% on that million to give them 20-30% the metric that we've just gone over. He'll be turning that million into 10 million, so he'll be getting 1,000% and giving his investors 20-30%.
No, what I mean is this: his fund's performance is the annual performance is like 30% over the year. So like a percent a day is 365%. Like compare that to the best traders, and they're not doing anywhere near that. Like they're not turning it into that type of money.
Yeah, that's the numbers that they're saying, but they'll be earning a lot more than a percent a day because of the leverage that they'll be using. They'll only need one trade, and they'll do 100% in one trade.
What do you think that they're using?
Well, there will be if that's what he's doing. I watched the documentary on him. It's one where he got his daughters to set up an Instagram account or something. I think that was him. No, I don't think that was him. I know the guy that you mean. I think he just passed away, hasn't he? He smokes a lot. But his fund, that's what the fund will return you, 20 to 30%. His fund, if you give him $100, he'll be turning that into $1,000. He'll be getting 1,000% on whatever money you would give him, and he'll be giving the investors. So, and obviously the weekend you don't trade, so it's not quite 365. You've got your holiday, so there's probably about 200 trading days out of 360. But yeah, I understand what you mean. But they'll be using massive leverage, unheard of leverage.
I mean, I'm not sure that that's their model. I mean, their model is that they hedge their positions out. They're hedging the risk. So, I mean, it's normally it's normally a weighted average of what they're doing. They'll not be just going there naked position with fucking balls to the walls leverage, because if you get it wrong, like you take a 1 to 200 account, 200 times leverage, you need a tiny move the wrong direction, it wipes your whole account out. A tiny position going the wrong way.
Yeah, but you don't need to put on 100% of the trade. I could have a £1 trillion account. I can still put on £10 per point. I could still put on £100 per point. So the account size doesn't necessarily mean you need to use that. Their fund has got X amount of. I feel like the Billions documentary episode thing that I was watching. They will be in positions. They, like you said, it gets a little bit tricky because when you're doing it to that level, they have to buy the trades back and so on and so forth. Hence the short, and then they have to buy. It can be a minefield, specifically, but certainly trying to explain it to the general Joe. But the way that they'll be earning their money, I would have thought they'll have within their fund, they'll have small risk, medium risk, and high risk. So now the Nvidia boom, they'll have been all over that 1 million% of last year. I was in Dubai last year when it was getting bounced around. It was a tradable sort of blue chip company. Little did I know that it would have done 500% in a year.
Yeah, I think. I think one of the big players. Who was it that we came out and they were out the position? Who was it that sold out the position?
Cathy Wood. I think Cathy Wood did something where she bought at the top, sold at the bottom, and I worked out the share price and the volume. I think she lost out on $250 million, 250 million. But she's made some catastrophic mistakes. I mean,
you could have retired just betting the opposite of the inversion of whatever Cathy Wood was doing. So if Cathy Wood put on a trade, you could have just fucking retired betting the other way. It's the same as who's the other guy, Jim Cramer. Like Jim, there's an inverse. There's a Jim Cramer inverse fund, which is whatever Jim Cramer says, this does the opposite, and people can buy into the fund.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, I mean, April and May, whatever trade I put on, it came in. I predicted. I bought Tesla's dip, put that on social media twice, standard leverage, got 40% and 25%. I put it on. I showed people my trades. In fact, I'll try and send you the actual post. It was okay being wrong. I was prepared to have. I went in at 100,000. I had, I think, 5 to 7% risk, so it would have been a sting. But as soon as we got to sort of 5 and 10 grand the following day, I think it was the same day actually, I got 5 grand. I locked in a break even. So then the following day we gapped up, and then 2-3 days later it romped on. I always say it's a $200 stock. It's a stock that I've traded many a time. It's a stock that I owned when I should have held it. So I do have that confidence that certainly when it's at its lowest or lows of recent times, people will buy it. It's that simple. I don't think if you think that you're going to outsmart it for 12 hours a day, like I can turn up to my laptop now and trade the Hang Seng, then I can trade the European Open and the American Open. I do that every day, but it's not every day that I outsmart them. Sometimes I might get a win in the morning, win in the afternoon, and a win in the evening. They're only small wins. They're only 10, 15 points, but obviously the account is fairly lumpy. I'm walking away with a grand, 1,500 quid per trade.
What would you say to anyone that's interested in getting to know more about what you do, and where would be a good place for them to start?
I think they need to be honest with themselves. I mean, I used to be really into my fitness. I got in really good shape when I was younger. Like I say, I've been a bit tricky during my younger times. Golf. I've started to play golf the last couple of years. I'm sort of picking that up. I think you've got to be, honest with yourself. If you're capable of managing your emotions and managing money, it's very, very different. I might be in a trade where I see £1,500 on the table when I need to check myself and go back to the system and the program and lock in a break even on it. It might go to £5,000. I think they need to be honest and say, are they really capable of that? And if they are, I would start with understanding the basics of investing, either your Warren Buffett style, get familiar with that, then maybe use Bitcoin as an analogy because it's new and sexy. Bitcoin at 10 grand, if it goes to 20, you've doubled your money. If you use leverage 1 to 200, you'd need a third of that. And then start getting the basics and the terminology, and then open an account with either IG, TD365, certainly in the UK. They pay out on the same day. And start having a little play, supply, sticking to your standard sort of strategies, supply, demand, support, resistance. If I knew what I knew now and, got away from the Fibonacci's and this and the Elliott waves, there's so many strategies out there. But if they cannot do the basics of what I say to my students is a good, my mentor told me this, one of my mates has a hedge fund. He says, do the same thing consistently. So if you're going to short the market, wait for the market to be high. And if you don't feel that it is high, wait again and wait again. So you're almost predicting price movements. You're analysing market structure. And then if you believe that there's a dip opportunity, these are for demo traders, start buying dips, but only buy dips. So it's a bit like if you want to get good at deadlifting, you wouldn't start training other things. You would stick to deadlifting and try and get progressively stronger over a period of time. And that's why I liked or use bodybuilders as an analogy, because they're able to do the same thing over a period of time for many years.
What about, when you say managing their emotions and managing their money are two different things, like, how would you describe that to someone that maybe doesn't understand it?
So if they turn, let's say 10,000, because 1,000 to 10, whilst them numbers are great, it's a bit like starting with hundreds of pounds. If people start trading with hundreds of pounds, they'll probably lose it and they get burnt and think, I've just lost 500 quid. Whereas if they started with a practice account and had 10,000 and then they was able to turn that into somewhat of real money, 20, 30, 50 grand, then they've got to be able to manage their emotions, not go out and buy a car, not go out and buy a Rolex, make the same mistakes that I did, get an M3 that was 1,800 quid a month, get a van that was this, get a truck, go to Dubai. You've got to be able to not fall off the wagon, really. And that's where I think a lot of these film stars goes, where they're earning hundreds and hundreds of millions, and the Michael Jacksons, end up killing themselves. Whitney Houston, it's a very, very slippery slope, I think, when you're earning reasonable money. Even in Thailand, we can go out for 20 quid and have more beers that you're going to drink, and I felt, I've seen myself midweek, oh, right, yeah, I'm not training tomorrow, I'll just go out on the piss. You imagine when you're in a position, or the fuck off position, excuse the language, where you don't need to get up in the morning, you can sort of maybe go out and party, then that's managing your emotions, because you've got the money or you've got the wealth. I put like Warren Buffett, that's why I kind of admire him, because he lives in his same, Nebraska house that's worth about 300,000. He bought it for 20,000. There's something to be said about that, because it's not gone to his head. And if you're in a position where you can turn 10 into 20, well, you know that you can turn 20 into 40, and so on and so forth. The whole doubles game that everyone's jumping on the bandwagon on Instagram, but it does happen. When you've got a couple of $100,000 worth of capital, and you're able to get 1% every other day or 10% a month, that's a lot of money. And you've got to be in a strong position to manage your emotions and not go off the bandwagon.
Mm-hmm. What did you said there, the Instagram lifestyle, like, what is it that you see with traders and day traders on Instagram? What's the sort of What do you see now from having the experience of years doing it?
Well, I think now it's become apparent that you can go to Dubai, you can rent a Lamborghini for 2 days, you can stay in an amazing apartment, hotel, or Airbnb, and it looks like it's all yours. And it's not, and they're doing that to sell you a dream via a course and the Signal group, and people will think that they relate to that person. They'll end up with X amount of students. They'll get affiliate links through brokers, and they're not actually trading and basically scamming people. That's what the sad reality is of Instagram, unfortunately.
What do you mean they get
Like,
affiliate links for
a bit like,
brokers?
yeah. So I'm affiliated with the two brokers that I've said. So if I signed you up, for example, I would get a commission based off your trades. So it doesn't cost you anything, obviously. The spreads that the exchange, the brokers earn off, you get a percentage of that. So it's pennies on maybe a £10,000 account. If you had a £10,000 account and you place a trade a day, it'd be pennies over the week, but via hundreds and hundreds of students, pennies turn into pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like, Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner's selling you a dream of all her makeup, but she spends £1 million a week on plastic surgery. It's like, really? Are you doing that to people? Bodybuilders. Oh, get this protein, do this. Right, what insulin are you on? What growth are you on? Like, really, what are you doing? There's some pro bodybuilders here, and they've told me the stuff that they're on, and I'm surprised that the standing. There's one guy who's 20-odd years old, and he looks 40, and he just looks like he's going to keel over because the amount of substances on.
Great. I mean, so like, see if people are out there and they're looking at the Instagram trader lifestyle, and they're going, "This looks tasty. I'm into a bit of this." Like, what what would you say is the warning signs? Like, there's
what of somebody on Instagram?
No, I'm like the one that comes to mind that I get people ask me all the time, like about this stuff, and I've had like offers about, do you want to trade my money? I'm like, absolutely fucking not. I do not want your money to trade. I was like, right, it's first of all, it's not what you think it is, right? It's much more difficult and much harder, and there's a lot more booby traps and the amount of money that you would need to give me to trade for it to be valuable for the time that I put into it just doesn't add up, right? It doesn't add up at all. Like, to do a proper risk-weighted risk management, sensible leverage, working the trade ideas, working at the fundamental analysis, doing the technical analysis, managing the position size, managing the portfolio. Trust me, there's a reason that you need billions for this to make sense. Because if you want to earn a risk managed account, like, your two options are, you go into it and the risk is properly managed, like hedge fund level managed, or you want to be a bit tasty. Like, if you want to be a bit tasty, what happens is you massively increase the chances that it goes against you. And if you do it, but what comes with that is the opportunity, if you get it right, to make it big, right? But what people see is, I see these people claiming that they're making it big, and they just don't know the other side of that, which is the risk. Like, everything, you could lose the entire account if you want to go that big, right? And then if you put a bit of risk management into it, well, that means that you've got losses. So it means that you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and what you're trying to do is play the odds. So, like, good traders will play the odds. They'll be winning 6 out of 10 in their wins. They can even win five wins, 5 losses. Some really good, well-managed accounts can actually lose more than they win and still be up money, because the risk management is that they win more than they lose. So it's these things that people don't understand. They don't understand that it's not just as simple as check a chart, AI will work it out for you. It does all the analysis. Yeah. You just, hey, it's hit this level, I buy in, I've bought cable, and it goes to the fucking moon. I'm 200 grand up for the day, and I'm going to teabag my balls in the Irish Sea because I'm the fucking King Dick. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
No, I mean, crypto, because we'll all know somebody. I mean, I had a guy here turn £30 sterling into 40. But he's he's lost thousands, and it's probably cost him 30 grand. He's had to buy the 30 grand back, if that makes sense. He's had to stay in it that long to try and get it back, but he's not seen it because his dollar cost average, a few hundred quid here, a few hundred every day. Whereas, your good quality investments, we'll say, if you're in a position to leverage them, so your Tesla trades or your Bitcoin at 20, your Tesla when it was 50 and or 140 when I bought it, I'm happy being wrong. And I always say to people, I like being wrong. My missus will say to me, have you made money today? I said, oh, no, I lost it. It was great. I'm glad I'm out. She went, what do you mean? How much? I was like, I lost 700 quid in the morning. I lost £1,000 on the Hang Sang. And she went, what, sterling? I'll say, yeah, because when I'm right, I'm typically getting a 1 to 3. So I'm happy to lose £1,000 because I know that the next trade will be 3-4 grand. Or I'll scalp that money back if I so wished, if the market was choppy. So, I've been around the block through all my life, through my 20s, jail, drug dealing. None of it I'm proud of, but it's kind of laid the foundations for me to be here. Yes, I've got a nice little pot of money. Yes, I got lucky in the bull run. Yes, I got lucky with selling my courses, making 80,000. I made some mistakes in the way, going to Dubai, spending 10 grand on holidays every 3-4 months, giving it the big one, buying the M3, doing all that mistake. But then at 40 years old, in the last 7 or 8 months, all I've done is sort of filtered my money over here. I won't say too much on here, but I got
Did you feel the
familiar
bollocks?
with Bitcoin.
Did you feel the bollocks at the time? So you're Billy Big Balls, you're fucking, you're drug dealing. You've got the fucking cars, the glam, the cash. Did it feel good at the time?
I mean, Sam Sulek, this new bodybuilder sort of guy, said one thing, and it's kind of stuck with me. Back then, it was nice. I had the old M3 when I was early 20s. The best feeling that I've had is being 6'3" and 100 odd kilos, and when I was in shape, in good shape. That's probably the best feeling. Anyone can go to a nightclub and spend 5 grand on a credit card and whatnot. Yeah, okay, it did have its moments, but for me, bodybuilding, that sort of outweighed the money side of things because the guys that I was tally with, Billy Payne, one of Dorian Yates' ex bodybuilding partners, both of them two was in America. Both of them got offered $1 million each to wrestle for WWF and turned it down. Billy Payne was actually a better bodybuilder than Dorian Yates, and Dorian Yates went on to be one of the best in the world. So I was mixing with them guys when, you didn't really, it was old school sort of people. You didn't want to shove the money down the throat because they kind of get pissed off that they wasn't on that level. Equally, if I went out to dinner with you, I would act a certain way. But in the back of my mind, it was nice that, I was kind of an Andrew Tate character at the time where I was a big lad and, a little bit vocal on social media. And when you're 20 odd year old, you've got a few quid, it tends to show when you're driving a better car than your parents or, your friends and family. It's like, oh, well, how's he got that?
Mm-hmm.
You stick out like a sore thumb, don't you?
Then did you feel like looking back now, is it a case of you're glad you've done it, or would you be like, would you warn people off doing it again? Like if you could go back and whisper in your ear, first of all, would you have listened back then? And second, would you say, look, would you let yourself make the mistake, or would you be like, look, change tack?
In some shape or form, if I never went to jail, I would never probably be here. And if I never went to jail, I would have continued. And if I never did day trading, I would have probably gone back to criminality. I didn't need to. I had a successful car business. My brother was giving me his part exchanges. I was getting part exchanges from garages. I was earning 10 grand a month through my business. But that's all kind of worked hand in glove for me to manage my emotions with day trading. I don't fear anything because the worst that can happen, I can lose £1,000 or two for the day. Whereas when I was in the underworld, I could get 25 years stuck up my ass. So, it's taught me, yes, I wish I never went to jail only because of my family, the shame that I felt that I brought on them and my dad leaving him when I was an idiot. It was demoralising them respects. My dad would come and see me in prison. I felt ashamed that I'd done what I'd done for the family. But I think now, they probably look at me and think, actually, the idiot hasn't done too bad for himself.
So why see when you were making 10K a month from the cars? Why did you get into the drug game?
No, I wasn't making that when I was in the drug game. I was just doing that on the side. I was probably earning a grand a week with the cars.
Yeah, still not bad. I mean, it's like it's
Yeah, it's all right, but then when you've got the government breathing down your neck and, DVLA this and the garages that you take the cars, and this is where it all comes back with the government, here, I don't even think you have MOTs. You look after your car, the roads are horrendous, but you're not paying road tax. But I was taking cars that would sail through an MOT, and the examiners were having to pick up on all these bits because the government were coming, DVLA would be out examining them, just stifling money off you.
Mhm.
And whatever you did, if you earn 10 grand a month, you're paying tax and you're paying VAT. So before you know it, you're giving away 50 to 60%. Okay, you can offset various things and get a car, lease car through a business, but you'd have to jump through millions of hoops. Where when I was looking at the drug game, I thought I can nick 5 grand a week here. It's the only way to get in and get out to a business where you maybe move over to Dubai, where you don't really pay tax or very little tax. I think the new laws coming in, and they help you get ahead. Where in England, no matter whatever you did, accountants charge you a fortune, even though you got all your books, and it was just like, yeah, it's like you needed a break. No wonder I flipping went to drug game, because the normal 9 to 5 was horrendous.
What was like? What would be like? So, how does it compare? Like, what's been your biggest week? Has it been the drug game or has it been in the trading game?
Trading by far, there's no money like it,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're importing stuff from South America and you're selling it in, well, probably England, buying some over there for maybe 4 or 5 thousand and sell it in England for 30, 40,000. Yes, that's great if you're bringing a thousand of them in, a ton of them in. That's great. But typically speaking, I can, like this morning, I missed the Hang Seng trade. If I'd have, and I'm getting away from IG, using that for my standard investing. So certainly my long-term portfolio, dollar cost averaging into the VOO and VTI. But there's nothing like this. When I was familiar with it, when I started to get familiar with it in jail, you put 10 grand on and it's leveraged by this, and obviously with TD 365, if I'd have put on £300 a point this morning with TD 365, that would have been 40,000, which you would have need 400,000 with IG, and it moved 300 points. So that would be 90,000. So there is boys doing that, certainly, but they're not telling you that. That's the problem with the Instagram boys. They are driving Lamborghinis over in America and whatnot, or living in Dubai. That's fine. They are doing that. But none of them mention the leverage. And that's one thing that's really annoying me, because it's like they've got these millions and they're doing a Warren Buffett style where they're buying gold, but none of them are telling you they've got these massive high leveraged accounts, and they're getting one or two trades, seldom rarely, which is fine. You only need one trade of 90,000. That's a year's worth of profits for me. I'm quite happy with that. But
What do you make of them?
it's
I
annoying
think
that
there's a
they're
lot
not.
of bollocks with them. I think they're running multiple accounts and they're taking a position either way, and they're showing you the winning one, not the losing one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can falsify something on a demo now and show you, but 40,000 isn't. For the boys that are doing it, I think there's several guys that I know that have got good accounts similar to myself, that are going into now high leverage, because that's where you really, instead of making 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, sitting pretty in Thailand like myself, you're in a position where you can use half of, or the same size position, and get 10 times the profits.
But where are they covering the risk off though? Because the thing being is that this is all based on if you get it right. If they get it wrong,
Well, no,
that
it's not a gamble. So what people forget is, if Floyd Mayweather's fighting Manny Pacquiao tomorrow, and we put £1 million on, if we get it wrong, we lose £1 million. Right? The
Mhm.
bookies, take the money off you. They don't give you half of it back. Whereas if I put the trade on this morning, which I've been watching it all for 2 weeks. I've been trying to time this bottom, only because it's been selling off. It's got to buy. It's got to reverse at some stage. I'm not saying 300 points or 3,000 points. There will be a small dead cat bounce, for example, of 200-300 points. So if I put that trade on for £300 per point on TD365, I was happy to have 10-15 point stop loss, 3 to 5k loss. So that would have only eaten into that size account. So I would have 100,000 in there. The trades cost me 40,000. If I get it wrong, I lose £5,000 off the 100. So it's not really that big a deal. Whereas if I'd have got it right, I'm getting 90,000 opposed to a £5,000 loss. I'll show you anyway. I'm gonna load this account up this month, and I'm happy to be very, very transparent, because I've been doing it for that many years now. The light bulb moment of what these guys are telling you. I mean, a lot of them are bullshit. 99% are bullshit, because the ones that say they're really good, none of them have got a funded account. Where if they had a funded account, even with FTMO, you can get, I think it's 400,000. They could put 2 or 3 trades on a month and walk away with 50 grand free money. Who wouldn't do that?
Have you had your broker shafting you yet?
No, I mean, IG, it's one of the best brokers about, not because I'm affiliated with them, but because they've been around for donkeys. They're sponsored the cricket. There's no ambiguity with slippage as such. But no, when you make a withdrawal, it's there. TD365, I've just made 1,000 withdrawals today. And it was there 20 minutes after I requested the money. It was on my social media. You see it now as we speak. So not really. If you're earning £1 million a day, maybe there might be something going wrong. I don't know, but generally speaking, bookies don't like it when you're taking money off them. But this is coming from the exchange, the stock exchange itself. So if I'm struggling to get billions, I'll give you the heads up at some stage.
Yeah, I've known guys that have had issues. I've seen some serious fuckery. Some serious fuckery.
I think if there's I think depending on what they're trading, and depending on liquidity, I've had that, where it hasn't been the same day, it might be 3 days. That 90 grand there, when I load the account with 100, if I get a 90% day from the account balance and withdraw 90 grand, I might be only able to draw 50. I think that is the maximum, because I had a look today. But I'm going to go big with TD365, because I've been doing it for that many years now that
I fucking love your bollocks, man. I mean, every part of me is
doing it for that.
Every part of me is going, this is fucking carnage, right? But the punter in me, the fucking, the rascal's like, yeah. But I mean, the fundamentals and all the risk management's like 200 times leverage is fucking wild.
Yeah, but you just got to have we're not trading.
That's fucking conviction,
with
there, Robbie. That is conviction. That is having the big bollocks.
Well, it's not. It's not for everybody. But then, I'm not like everybody, and they're not like me. I always say to a lot of people, I can do what you can do in your job and whatnot, but you can't do what I can do. You can't lift the same weights as me. You can't drink the same beer as me. You don't live in the same vicinity as me. So I'm out there on a fringe. I'm not saying it's for everybody. Yeah. But that's a surefire way to get rich, or, like you say, potentially lose it all. Bearing in mind, I'd have to have, if I've got £100,000 account and I'm managing 5,000, I'd have to get it wrong 20 times. So if I got it wrong 5 times and I lose 25,000 and I get that 300-point move, I'm still 60, 70,000, well, call it 50,000 up, even after losing 20. So my account's 150,000.
Some fucking minerals, man. Honestly.
So 25. Yeah, you're still way up. So I don't mind losing. It's not gone in my favour. Bearing in mind, I'm not saying that I'm getting these 300-point moves on the hang sign. I'm not saying I'm getting them all the time. Today on the Nasdaq, I would have probably bought that dip. Nvidia's falling. The last 5 minutes, it's just reversing. So Nasdaq's Nasdaq's retracing from 19,850, but it pumped from 700. So if I'd have gone with £150 per point, and I'd have got a 100-point move, I'd have had 15,000 today on a 3,000 to 4,000 risk. So the winners outweigh them, as you said. Like the gentleman that you've mentioned with the hedge funds, I don't mind taking losses because it's got me out of the position. It's not a problem. The problem is when you get short squeeze like GME, where you're having to double down on positions, and you've got $1 million cost average in buying a loser. It's just a nightmare, a short squeeze. But we're not getting to that element. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, it's generally a 1 to 3. So I'm okay with a 50-60% win ratio.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's that, this is the thing. If you're doing 3 trades a day, and there's you could lose 20 positions, 20 trades inside a week. So it goes back to what you said about the emotions. The emotions are: can you control it? Can you deal with it? Can you stick to the plan? What's your conviction? Do you keep doing what you're doing? And this is the things that people don't really prime themselves for when they start to do this. They think it's just a case of, oh yeah, it's got to there on the chart, and I've got an indicator up, and the Mcnee says it's a buy, so I'm going to put my 10 grand on, and then it fucking wipes them out because you've got too much leverage. I remember the
too leverage, and generally over position size, where if you've got a 10 grand account with your standard sort of leverage, you want to be using maybe a quarter of that, 2,500, maybe having a 200 pound stop loss on the basis that you might get a 500-600 pound profit. Maybe a 1 to 2, well, a 1 to 3 you really want to be going. So £100 loss, £300-400 gain. If you stick to them numbers and you manage the account size and you position size correctly, there's no reason why it can't work. I've been doing it for that many years now that, I owe it to myself to use the larger leverage and maybe get away from IG.
Do you teach that? What do you teach in your course?
The teaching thing, it's a bit cringe for me because I'm by no means a teacher or a mentor. I just designed a course in COVID that sort of showcased what I was doing, and what to do and not what to do, really. And then with the community, once it grew, there was various students in there that was really good and had different angles and lenses to look through. So they said, "Oh, can I put some material in your course?" So I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I paid them. So now I built this course that from an A to Z of what to do. Open your laptop, open your iMac, look at this broker, look at this leverage. What's dollar cost averaging? What do you mean long-term portfolio? All the stuff that we kind of know but don't know. What's a drop set in bodybuilding? Well, a drop set is when you go from this, and this, and just break it down, really.
And so where can people get in touch with you if they're interested in having a look at your course or any of the material and things like that? How do they find you?
So Instagram and YouTube. So the Yorkshire Stock Trader. Obviously, you probably put the Instagram logo up there. And just message me, because I always like to speak to people, not just go out and buy the course. See if you're a fit for the course. See if I'm a fit for you. Because a lot of these are younger lads that are coming from maybe crypto, where they've turned a few pennies into, decent money. And I'll say, right, well, open a demo account. No, I don't want to do that. I just want to put this 10 grand in because I'll spend it. And I kind of shy them away from that because obviously I'm, typically a little bit older than most people. And I've made a lot of mistakes where you don't need to. And I always say, there's a few guys here that go to the same gym, the same spa. just mirror what I'm doing, because, sometimes it works. And if it doesn't, or I'm being faked out on the market, then I will understand, I went in too large there. I should have waited for that reversal. Oh, I didn't follow the momentum. I was just guessing a reversal, or whatever I've done wrong. I'll be able to analyze it and tell them. So if I'm doing a live trade, I'll say, this is what I'm looking out for. I don't do signals as such within the community. Each trade that I take, I typically break it down. I'm looking at the DAX. I think it's going to hold here. This is the reasons why. This is why I'm getting in at this level. This is why I'm going in shorter and swinging it. I might hold the Tesla trade for 2 or 3 days on the base it might go to 200. It's all probabilities. It's all the 50-50 chance. Me and you can put a trade on now and walk away with profits, but can you do it consistently? And I think over the last 10 years, I've sort of proved that I've got a little bit about me, whether it's bodybuilding or business, and obviously day trading.
Well, what you mentioned your community there. Is the community on IG, or is that something that you've got that people can sort of access?
So it's a 3-in-1. It's a 3-in-1 course. So within the course, you get lifetime access online, so you can log in, go through all the modules A to Z. Then within that, you get a Discord community, so you sign up to there. I'm telling you what I'm looking out for. Obviously, I can't tell you legally what to trade. I'm not FCA regulated. All for educational purposes. And I'll tell you, this is why I'm looking at the DAX. This is why I'm looking at the Hang Seng. This is what I expect the NASDAQ to do, or the Dow is looking a little bit grim, and this is the reason why. So within the Discord community, you get signals and tips and insights of what to do and not what to do. And then on the back of that, they've got 4 45-minute Zoom calls to jump in with me, where we can have a little chat similar to this, where if they understand X, Y, and Z, right, let's not cover that. Let's cover the ABC that you don't understand. So it's not a get rich quick scheme course like all the guys are telling you. There's no guarantees with it. But if you mirror what I do and understand what I do, it's a bit like if we went to the gym with Ronnie Coleman or Dorian Yates. Invariably or not, we'd probably pick it up slightly quicker, if we're consistent with our food. If they're going to give us the same stuff that they was on, we would alter our physiques, and that's what I'm doing. I'm giving you that sort of personal training experience through someone that's actually doing it. There's no bullshit. Okay, I've been to Dubai several times, but I'm not selling you a dream from Dubai. I'm not selling you a dream here in Thailand. If anything, now my overheads are that small, you could probably live here on the dole. So I've had a bit of a reset myself, and it's quite nice.
Well, it's good. Well, it's been a pleasure getting a chance to find out what you're up to, your twists and turns, and getting there, seeing how you ended up where you're at today, and sharing your journey and showing people the ropes if they want to get a handle on this thing called day trading. It's been great. I think we could have probably done another 3 hours going down the rabbit holes. Maybe we should save that for the next episode.
Next time.
We'll stick all the show notes for Robbie's page at the bottom of the podcast. Be sure to give him a follow and see what he's up to and see how he's doing with the Hang Seng, and if he's moving away from IG and how these 200 times leverage trades go. I'll be sure to be watching along because if anything, it will be thrilling and exhilarating. So thanks for joining us, Robbie. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for taking your time out of your day to come on the podcast and tell us about your life so far.
All the best. Take care.
Nice one. Cheers, Robbie.